Big Boy 4014 is crossing America right now. Every channel shows the beauty shots. This one shows the diesel hiding behind it, the crew that sleeps with the locomotive, and the real reason this tour exists: 200 gallons of water per mile. Fire departments refilling the tenders. An $85 billion merger application was filed the same week the tour was announced. What does it actually take to keep the largest steam locomotive alive in 2026, and why? Every publicity photo of Big Boy 4014 rolling through the heartland seems to show a lone, smoke-belching titan. But the real story widens the frame. Directly behind the steam locomotive, a modern diesel rides every mile. This isn't a backup plan or a concession to nostalgia. It's the only way 4014 can run on a 21st century railroad. The diesel's first duty is dynamic braking. On long downhill grades, the steam engine's own brakes would wear out in a matter of hours. The diesel's dynamic brake system absorbs the train's momentum, converting it into heat and sparing the fragile brake shoes on the 1941 running gear. Without this, the trip would grind to a halt before it crossed a single mountain pass. Second, the diesel supplies auxiliary power. Modern passenger cars need 480 volts of electricity for lighting, air conditioning, and communication systems. Big Boy's boiler makes steam, not current. The diesel's generator feeds power down the train line, keeping every coach and control box alive. Third, the diesel acts as the host for positive train control. Federal law requires every mainline train to carry a PTC computer, a GPS antenna, and radio links to central dispatch. Retrofitting these systems into a steam cab would mean tearing up historic steel and wiring. Instead, the diesel quietly carries the brains of the operation, relaying signals and keeping the train within safe limits. Fourth, the diesel manages tunnel ventilation and fire safety. In confined spaces, the diesel's exhaust fans help clear smoke and steam, protecting the crew and any riders from carbon monoxide buildup. If a fire breaks out, the diesel powers emergency pumps and lighting, turning a potential catastrophe into a controlled response. Finally, the diesel is the rescue plan. If 4014 loses boiler pressure, suffers a mechanical fault, or simply can't move, the diesel can take over in seconds. It applies its own brakes, stabilizes the train, and, if needed, tows the entire consist to safety. Union Pacific's manuals spell it out: no mainline steam run leaves the yard without a diesel chaperone. Every documented 4114 excursion since 2019 has run with a diesel directly behind the steam engine. There are no exceptions on the open railroad. Only brief, ceremonial moves inside the yard ever leave the diesel uncoupled. The iconic image of a solitary Big Boy is a carefully cropped truth. The real feat is not self-reliance, but coexistence: 1941 muscle, 2026 compliance, and a silent partner in yellow and gray. The spectacle depends on the system, and behind every whistle and plume of steam, the diesel is always there. 20 gallons of oil for every mile. On level ground, that's the average. Climbing the Sierra, the number climbs too: 25 gallons, sometimes more, burned and atomized into heat to keep the firebox alive. 200 gallons of water, gone for every mile the wheels turn. The tender empties fast. Every few hours, the train stops and hoses snake from fire trucks or city hydrants, filling the steel tank as the crew checks the gauge and listens for the hollow echo of an almost dry vessel. 50,000 gallons disappear in a single day. 68 gallons per mile, the peak draw, recorded once, long ago, when a Big Boy was pushed to its limit on the Wasatch grade. That number hangs over every run, a reminder of what the machine can demand if asked. Boiler pressure, 300 pounds per square inch. A wall of superheated steam pressed against steel that must not fail. Safety valves are set by hand, and the engineer's eyes flick to the dial, always. Federal law draws its own line. Every 1,472 days in service, the boiler must be stripped, inspected, and rebuilt. Ultrasonic testers, dye penetrant, X-rays, no shortcut allowed. The next inspection for 4014 is already scheduled, the clock ticking down with every mile. $5 million, the price to bring this locomotive back from the grave. That figure covers the years of labor, the hand-welded stay bolts, the custom-fabricated flues, the modern oil system, and the regulatory paperwork stacked inches thick. Each number is a threshold. Cross it, and the trip ends. Ignore it, and the machine becomes a museum piece again. The spectacle rides on these invisible limits: the gallons burned, the pressure held, the dollars spent, the days counted. The AWE is real, but so is the weight. Before sunrise, 5 people step down from the crew van and move toward the sleeping locomotive. The air smells of oil and wet steel. Ed Dickens, the man Union Pacific trusts with £1.2 million of moving history, unlocks the firebox and begins the ritual. There is no ignition switch. The machine does not start. It wakes up. Every morning, Dickens and his crew coax steam from cold metal, feeding oil to burners and watching dials climb toward 300 pounds per square inch. It is a process measured in hours, not minutes. The first job is always the same: relight the fire, prime the water, and listen for the low rumble that says the boiler is alive again. Around them, the rest of the team works in practiced silence. One checks the tender's water gauge. Today it reads full, but not because of the original 4014 tank. The tender coupled behind the locomotive is 25C311, borrowed from Challenger 3985, while the original sits in a shop in Silvis, Illinois, stripped for overhaul. It is a necessary compromise, a swap made to keep the tour on schedule while the old tank is rebuilt. The borrowed tender holds more water, but it is not a perfect fit. The feed lines have been adapted, the crew watches for leaks, and every refill is a reminder that preservation means improvisation as much as restoration. Ed Dickens leads the lubrication round. Every 100 miles, the running gear gets fresh oil. No exceptions. Each stop on the schedule, each so-called whistle stop, is more than a photo op. It is a maintenance window. The crew moves down the length of the locomotive with oil cans and rags, checking bearings, topping off reservoirs, wiping away grit. They touch every moving part, hands blackened by the same grease that kept these rods turning in 1941. The cadence is set by the machine itself. Bearings do not care about press releases or parade times. If a journal box runs dry, the trip ends right there. The skills required for this work are vanishing. Lubricating a big boy is not a job for a modern diesel mechanic. It is a blend of memory, feel, and inherited knowledge. How much oil to add? What a healthy bearing sounds like when a hiss means trouble. Some of these skills survive only in this crew, passed from one generation of railroaders to the next. The youngest member, learning from Dickens and the veterans, knows he is inheriting a craft with no future outside this moving museum. Every hour, every mile is paid for in labor that cannot be automated or outsourced. The spectacle depends on these hands, these eyes, this patience. The borrowed tender, the pre-dawn rituals, the 100-mile lubrication, all of it is the real cost of keeping Big Boy 4014 alive. The photographs will show a mighty locomotive crossing the plains, but the truth is here. 5 people, a firebox, and the quiet discipline that turns myth into motion. A mountain doesn't care about spectacle. In late March, the Sierra Nevada lived up to its reputation, throwing snow and ice across the summit at Donner Pass. Union Pacific's dispatchers watched the radar, weighed the odds, and made the call: close the pass and reroute the world's largest operating steam locomotive. The new route would snake through the Feather River Canyon, a line famous for its tight tunnels and sharp curves. Before Big Boy 4014 could move, crews walked the length of every tunnel and bridge, tape measures in hand, checking clearances for a machine that stands over 16 feet tall and stretches more than a city block. Freight traffic had to be reslotted, schedules rewritten, and the entire tour's logistics rebuilt overnight. This wasn't just a detour. On Donner, the grades are steep, but the route is built for heavyweights. The Feather River line is narrower, with older tunnels and sharper curves, and every inch mattered. Union Pacific's planners imposed a speed cap of 40 miles per hour on the descent, guarding against the risk of track damage from 1.2 million pounds of rolling steel. The diesel helper's dynamic brakes were critical, holding back the entire train on the long downgrade. Without the diesel, the steam engine's own brakes would have burned out before the river was in sight. Donner Pass has always been the proving ground for Western railroading. In 1946, Union Pacific tried to solve a different kind of mountain problem, the coal-to-oil conversion of Big Boy 4005. Wartime coal shortages forced the experiment. Shop crews installed a new oil burner, modified the firebox, and sent the locomotive up the grade. The result was a string of failures, flameouts, smoke, and a firebox crown that cracked under thermal stress. The experiment was abandoned, and 4005 went back to coal. For decades, the story was a warning. Some mountains can't be conquered by willpower or quick fixes. 70 years later, the challenge returned. For the resurrection of Big Boy 4014, Union Pacific's restoration team faced the same question: could a Big Boy run reliably on oil? The answer came in 2019, with a modern temperature-controlled burner designed to avoid the old combustion failures. The new system delivered stable power, clean combustion, and most importantly, no flameouts on mountain grades. Shop notes from the restoration document every change: upgraded burner heads, electronic fuel governors, and a firebox lined for oil's different heat profile. Field tests confirmed the fix, logging 5,800 horsepower with no loss of steam, even on the toughest climbs. But even the best engineering can't outsmart the weather or the landscape. When the pass closes, the train waits or finds another way. Every reroute is a reminder: this is not a museum piece on a plinth. It's a living machine, bound by the same constraints as any other train on the line. The spectacle depends on the mountain's permission, the planner's calculations, and the willingness to adapt. For all the myth of unstoppable progress, sometimes the mountain wins. Union Pacific's official story for 4014's 2026 tour is draped in red, white, and blue. Every press release and every speech from the podium frames the Big Boy's journey as a rolling tribute to America 250, a living monument to progress, unity, and the railroad's historic role in binding the nation together. The tour schedule itself is branded with the America 250 logo, and every stop from Omaha to Philadelphia is billed as a community celebration. The language is polished, almost ceremonial. Witness history in motion, a once-in-a-generation event, celebrating the spirit that built a nation. The official narrative is more than nostalgia. It is a carefully orchestrated act of image-making. The 2026 announcement came with a flourish, with quotes from local mayors, a commemorative coin, and a promise that the Big Boy would connect Americans from coast to coast. The railroad's public statements focus on heritage and pride, sidestepping the technical and logistical realities that make the spectacle possible. The locomotive is cast as a symbol, not a system, a solitary giant, not the centerpiece of a complex, modern operation. But every so often, a crack appears in the polished surface. In a moment of unexpected candor, Union Pacific's Chief Executive Officer, Jim Vena, told a reporter that unless it can haul a 100-car grain train, he does not want it on the railroad, and that there are intangible benefits that go far beyond revenue. The remark lingers, at odds with the flag waving. It is a reminder that the tour is more than a goodwill gesture. The Big Boy is a tool, one that serves a purpose in the company's larger strategy, even if that purpose is not spelled out in the press kit. The spectacle is real, the awe is real, and so is the calculation behind it. America. 250 banners flutter, crowds gather, and the locomotive steams into view. But behind the slogans and the speeches, something quieter is at work. A campaign for hearts, minds, and perhaps regulators. The official story invites celebration, but the paperwork tells another tale. On January 15, 2026, Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern filed an $85 billion merger application with the Surface Transportation Board, opening docket AB 23-1024-R. The paperwork landed with a thud, hundreds of pages laying out financial projections, promised efficiencies, and a vision of a seamless rail corridor from Omaha to Philadelphia. But less than 6 weeks later, the board issued its first response, incomplete. The board demanded more detail, more disclosure, and a clearer demonstration that the merger would serve the public interest, not just corporate ambition. The timing was no accident. The Big Boys America 250 tour, announced in the same press cycle as the merger, was never just a birthday party. Every whistle stop east of Chicago mapped onto the proposed network, tracing the very trackage Union Pacific hoped to knit together in the new system. The spectacle ran on borrowed rails. For every mile 4014 covered in the east, the train depended on partner trackage, Norfolk Southern's lines leased under temporary agreements, with dispatchers in Atlanta slotting a £1.2 million steam relic between high-priority intermodal stacks. The logistical reality was stark. Big Boy's path to the Atlantic was a proof of concept for the merger itself. If the steam locomotive and its diesel companion could traverse the stitched-together corridor, so could the combined freight fleets and modern power that would follow. The board's rejection letter, dated February 28, 2026, cited insufficient evidence on competitive effects and route integration. The board wanted to see more than a parade. It wanted guarantees that the new network could actually function, that the spectacle on the rails was not just a show, but a demonstration of operational compatibility. As the tour pressed on, every reroute, every clearance check, and every hour spent waiting for a slot on borrowed track became part of the merger's silent argument. The spectacle was real, but so were the stakes. The Big Boys' journey was a rolling exhibit, steel, steam, and oil burning in service of a corporate chess move. The timing, the route, even the borrowed tender, all of it pointed to a future where nostalgia and strategy ran on the same rails. Big Boy's silhouette captures the myth, but the diesel behind it reveals the truth. Preservation means adaptation, not purity. Every whistle stop is a maintenance window, not just a celebration. Union Pacific's spectacle relies on invisible labor and pragmatic compromise. Today, the price of keeping history alive is honesty about what is required. Sometimes, coexistence, not nostalgia, is the real achievement. Thanks for joining me on the rails.